Previously on Did I Get What I Paid For? Jess, we have an incoming transmission.
My name is Shmi Marovalent of the Hoskin Empire. Give me the Omega-3.
Transmission strength increasing by 3,000%.
Not another sketch trying to reference the movie. That is so 2021.
You made Star Trek jokes in all 3 episodes.
No, I didn't. I just used simple knowledge of how you and Nick think.
Then yeah, you're right. 3 wishes.
I want to use one of my wishes.
On.
Look, I'll watch Mickey and the Beanstalk, but I wish I could skip to the rant, rap, and verdict without pissing off the guild.
Ready to go.
We have to take care of Jess. We'll destroy the whole damn show if we have to, before he makes things any worse.
I have these 3 holdover movies that the crew requested a while back, and I kind of don't want to do them right now. I'm not saying never do them, but I just had to go through 3 episodes without making a Star Trek reference, so
Come on, say it.
I wish I could do a 3-part Star Trek-themed season finale.
Okay, here you go. Our next episode.
Star Trek Enterprise Season 1? Critics Log, Stardate 54321.0.
Hey, I think you're making that number up.
I'm waiting for my friend the weird clown doll to get back on a date with a winter elf. Yup, just a typical day in the life of an internet critic.
Jess, you got a message incoming?
On screen. We decided to stop for ice cream. You should probably start the review without us. Wait. Can't you teleport?
You know how you're supposed to wait 45 minutes after eating to go swimming?
Yeah.
There is a similar rule about long-distance teleportation and eating chili.
That is so much more than I wanted to know. So our story begins with opening meditation at the Vulcan YMCA. A group of Andorians burst in like they're trying to rob a 7-Eleven. Then we get the opening credits. Short, sweet, and to the point. Back on Enterprise, Trip says he hates using Vulcan star charts. It seems like they're boldly going where quite a number of people have been before. Archer says, come on, we just found that Burger King orbiting Proxima Centauri. T'Pol comes in for the briefing. Archer says, we noticed this little outpost. The crew could use some shore leave. We want to check it out. T'Pol says, that's the Pajem Monastery. It's where Vulcans go to purge emotions and do yoga. You wouldn't like it. No, what you want is Omicron Delta. No, wait. Your people won't be ready for that for, a century or so. Trip says, oh, you mean Vulcans don't want strangers visiting? T'Pol says, no, they don't want humans visiting. Phlox, Porthos, and I would be welcome.
If they brought cookies, as long as they weren't oatmeal raisin, the Vulcans would change their mind.
Over lunch, T'Pol is talking to Phlox. He says, are you psyched to be going to the monastery? She tries to ignore him, but he goes on and on. He says, you'll have a chance to introduce your people to your new crew. Or is that the problem? It shouldn't be. The Vulcan ideal is infinite diversity and infinite combinations. Do you know why humans went out into space? T'Pol says, to seek out what they consider new civilizations. Phlox says, yeah, they're seeking diversity. So as you can see, Vulcan monks and humans have absolutely nothing in common. Archer, Trip, and T'Pol are going to be the first ones going down. Archer says, isn't it a little rude to go down there unannounced? T'Pol says, no, these people are Luddites. We go down there. The elders will greet us. Do not speak unless spoken to. Don't touch any of the relics, and you should probably eat before we go. They really jack up those cafeteria prices. They get down there and it's a little bashed up. Trip jokes that the Vulcans must have really gone on a bender purging emotions. T'Pol chalks it up to this being a 3,000-year-old monastery. She rings this old-timey doorbell and I expect Lurch to open the door. I guess he was busy on XO3. No one answers, so they let themselves in. They see this one guy acting as a living statue. They stare at each other in silence. Weird thing. There must have been a conversation here at some point, but you'd never know it. I'm hearing impaired and watch with the captain's on, and it's clear as day. T'Pol comes back and says, sorry, they're closed for the time of Kholinar. Trip says, the same thing happened to me when I went to Wally World. T'Pol asks if she can at least see the Stone of Chakah. The elder goes off to get it. While waiting for him, T'Pol gets suspicious. First, she notices the mishmash knickknacks, and that guard looked rather annoyed. Plus, the atrium was empty. Archer says the oldest monastery he's ever been to wasn't half as old or as large as this. T'Pol says, yeah, it could take weeks to explore. Trip says, and twice as long to clean up. The elder says, yeah, about that. The process of Kholinar is a lot like your Mardi Gras. He shows them the box with the stone. He opens it up and mutters something like, Mix's Spitlick kill Tipsy's him, then tries to send them on their way. Archer is staring at this bowl and catches a glimpse of Terrid Smurf hiding behind a wall. He says, yeah, you're right, we'd better scram. Trip sees it too and nods. The elder tells them to leave. Trip and Archer charge the false wall, grabbing the Andorian. But then the other angry Na'vi show up ready to shoot them. And now they're hostages. The Andorians take them to the same cell where they're holding the monk. The lead Andorian says, why didn't you tell us they had a Vulcan on that ship? The elder says, it was a human vessel. How should we know? The Andorian says, what the hell's a human? The elder says, you've seen those Limu, Emu, and Doug commercials? Yeah, that planet. Archer says they were in the area and stopped by for a neighborly visit. The lead Andorian, who for convenience's sake we'll call Shran, says, you lying pink-skinned tell us the real reason you're here. Archer says, I already told you. Shran says, come on, where are the weapons and new surveillance equipment you brought them? Archer says, what the fuck? We didn't bring them anything. Shran says, so you just happened to have a Vulcan officer. Archer says, you know how things go. Audible doesn't have our tech manuals in English, so we opted for a Vulcan science officer. Shran says, we've scanned your ship. We've seen your weapon systems. His security guard takes time out of his busy day of pointing guns at people to sexually harass T'Pol. Once they're gone, T'Pol explains that the Andorians are old enemies of the Vulcans. They're kind of paranoid, and they resent Vulcan's advanced cultural achievements. The Elder says, we fought a war with them a century or two ago, but some of them still think we're ready to invade them at any moment. A few of them even think that this isn't even a monastery, but a black ops site. Trip and Archer ask, why don't you do anything? The elders say, well, we don't have any tech here. Besides, they've done this plenty of times. They come in, they look around, smash some of the furniture, and when they don't find anything, they go home. All you did was piss them off. Back on the ship, Reed, Hoshi, and Travis are standing around this console. Sensors have detected another ship on the surface. Hoshi says, and you were scanning for other vessels because... Reed replies, I'm the tactical security officer. It's sort of my job. You're a communications officer. Don't you scan for subspace messages? Hoshi says, no. Reed smiles and says, that explains why you're still an ensign until that one episode in season 4 that nobody talks about. Travis says, I bet there are other visitors and we haven't heard from them because they're having a wonderful time. Hoshi says, and took in a meditation ritual or went to the spa. Cut to Shran beating the shit out of Archer to extract the location of the hidden base. Archer says, up your ass and around the corner. Shran asks, your people obviously have emotions, so what's with the Vulcan science officer? Archer says, she wasn't my first choice. I wanted Neil deGrasse Tyson. Shran says, really? Archer says, nah. She was assigned by the Vulcan High Command. Shran says, you report to Vulcan High Command? Archer says, no, or yes? It's complicated. A century or so ago, my people almost destroyed themselves. The Vulcans came in and made our planet habitable again. They've been acting like something in between colonizers and benevolent dictators ever since. Further explanation is interrupted by Archer's cell phone. He says if he doesn't answer it, they're going to send down an armed landing party. Then they won't be able to continue to torture him. Shran starts beating Archer anyway. He grabs the comm and says, your captain is now a prisoner of the Andorian Imperial Guard. You attack the surface, we kill everyone. You attempt a rescue, we kill everyone. You play Uncle Albert?
Let me guess. They kill everyone.
Then he smashes the comm. Hoshi says she's lost the signal. Reed says to try calling Trip and DePaul, but they get no response. Reed says, so I guess we're going down there with an armed landing party. Travis replies, but didn't he just say he'd... Reed says, yeah, I'm not deaf, but I didn't swear an oath to the Andorian Imperial Guard, did you? Travis says, no. Reed replies, good. Hoshi, dig through the Vulcan database and read up on the Andorians. Everyone else who matters, prepare to go down there to raise some hell. 2 of the Andorians come back and say they've looked just about everywhere. No secret base. Shran says, did you look in the personnel quarters or the communal showers? The guards say, isn't that a bit, intimate? Shran says, and the perfect hiding spot. Num. Go away. I'm trying to get Archer to talk. The guard says, did you try threatening to cut the monks' heads off? Archer says, but I told you everything I know. They beat Archer again and throw him in with the others. Archer says, man, if they don't find what they're looking for, we are dead. The elder says, I hope your affairs are in order. There is no listening outpost. We're just a plain, ordinary monastery. Trip says the Enterprise should send down an armed landing party if they don't hear back from us sooner or later. Archer says, about that. Trip says, look on the bright side, we're off the ship. Reed is in charge. That man has never met a problem that he could not solve with explosives. Archer says, you're right. I knew there was a reason I put that son of a bitch higher up on the chain of command than Porthos. The Vulcans say we kinda, sorta might be able to get a message out. Archer goes, huh? The Elder says, I know we said we didn't have any tech, but this monastery used to have a school, and where you have college kids, you have a college radio station. But it's probably busted. Trip says, hello, brilliant engineer. The Elder says, then all we have to do is go down into the catacombs, get it working again, make sure the Andorians don't find us, or destroy any of the relics down there. They all say, it sounds simple enough. Let's do it. Trip and one of the Vulcans go down there, and they find just what you'd expect. One-Eyed Willie's treasure, a map to the Holy Grail, and the Scooby Gang running the other way. They come to a fork in the path. The Vulcan goes one way, Trip goes the other. He notices this archway and a stairwell. He says, what's down there? The Vulcan says, nothing. It's just the restroom and the vault where the Elder keeps his special books to help him get through Pon farr. The transmitter's over there. But hey, it's portable, so Trip takes it with him. They get back right as the Andorians are starting their head count. The Vulcans offer Trip a blanket because it's cold in the desert at night anyway. But the Andorians are from an ice planet and have set the AC up to max. He says, nah, it would just get in the way of my work. Archer offers it to T'Pol. She says, no, you take it. It's close to Vulcan at night anyway, and you might need it. Archer asks if the Andorians have transporters. She says, no, but the noise would start a firefight and the landing party would be dead before they even rematerialized. Archer goes, some of us snore, so we could have them beam in here. T'Pol says, no. A phaser fight in closed quarters would kill the monks and destroy the relics. Archer says we're fucked either way, and the relics are just stuff. T'Pol says tensions between Vulcan and Andoria are bad. Your actions would trigger a war, and Earth would be dragged into it. Archer says, yeah, I didn't think about that, but that's no reason to let them get away with this shit. T'Pol says, Vulcans are a pacifist people. Archer says, but you were at war with them a century ago. T'Pol says, it was a one-time thing. Archer says, then you understand. The ugly fact is, sometimes violence works. T'Pol says, that sounds like something an Andorian would say. Archer says, look, I want a peaceful solution, but I'm smart enough to know when that isn't possible. Back on the ship, Hoshi gets a message from Trip. He tells them, whatever plan they're working on, abort. Do not try negotiating. Archer tried that, and he's going to need a few hours with Phlox when they get back. But don't worry, they have a plan. Archer, T'Pol, and the Vulcans are making a makeshift map of the monastery out of coins. Archer points out all the places where they could mount a defense, but get shot down. He even suggests a reliquary. The Vulcans say that would be blasphemous. Trip mentions the staircase he found. T'Pol says that would be right below the atrium. Archer gets flashes of that statue of yogurt he saw in the lobby. Archer slips a figurine up his sleeve and goes to ask if he can speak to Shran alone. The Andorians drag him off, and he tells them everything he knows. Trivia about old movies, how to make a good stir-fried chicken, that dogs can be taught how to play three-card Monte and cats can't. They beat the shit out of him, but in the scuffle he shoves the figurine up the nose of the sculpture. It lands at the bottom of the stairs. Trip finds it and comes back up. The Andorians return Archer. The elders tell him, "We don't want you doing this." Archer says, "I know that." Back on the ship, Reed and two of his security guys are getting on the transporter. Hoshi says, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Reed says, "As I said in the pilot, I didn't want to be the first person to try it. But Captain Archer came out fine." One of his security guys says, "So you're willing to be the second person to do it?" Reed says, "Unless you want to be demoted to Porthos's personal steward, get your ass on that transporter now."
If I wasn't an AI with numerous redundancies and backups, I wouldn't use a transporter either. I mean, your body gets disassembled molecule by molecule, transmitted across space, and for that fraction of a second, as an inferior human, you're technically dead because you don't exist.
The Andorians detect a power surge. The landing party make it into the access tunnel for the catacombs right as they make their way into the atrium. Shran goes to the prisoners and says, "Do any of you have a second cell phone? You know, the one you use to call your dealer or your side piece?" T'Pol says, "I think your sensors are glitchy." Shran says, "Glitchy? Right. I've got my eye on you." The Andorian who was hitting on T'Pol reads her a poem he wrote for her. Too bad it's the sort of thing a serial killer writes to their victims. Trip says, "Dude, gross." The Andorian asks, "Why do you care?" Trip says, "I don't. Not till season 3 anyway." The landing party is going through the hallway, putting up these little green Christmas lights. I'm not sure what they're supposed to do, but they don't block sensors, that's for sure. The Andorians detect the extra life signs, which of course lead them to the catacombs. The creepy Andorian tells T'Pol that he knows all about Pon farr, how Vulcan women make their mates kill someone for them. He'll gladly do it. Archer says to knock it off. The guard says, "If you let me kill that guy, I'll settle for second base." The other Andorians have tracked the landing party until a wall blows up. Those little green lights were explosives. And we get a shootout. Two of the Andorians get away. Archer is getting his ass handed to him by Shran until Reed comes to the rescue. Archer says we have to go after them. One of the Vulcans decides to come along. The elder says, "We're a pacifist people, remember?" He says we have to protect what's ours. Yet, when they get to the reliquary, he says, "This is sacred ground. You can't go in there." Archer says, "You aren't trained to use a phased pistol. Let us handle this or the Andorians will steal everything." The Vulcan says, "You have a point." They arrive just in time for a gunfight. As for the relics, the Vulcan phrase, "Salat in a china shop," comes to mind. During the fight, they knock over a curtain, revealing a hat with a big X on it. Either Professor Xavier is inside using Cerebro, or that's a Vulcan listening post. Spoiler alert! Last time I checked, this was not the Star Trek series starring Patrick Stewart. Archer tells T'Pol to scan the room with her tricorder. The whiny Vulcan raises his phase pistol and says, "I can't allow that." But before he can do anything, Reed takes him out. T'Pol finishes her scans. Archer says, now give them to General Smurf. T'Pol says, but that would put my people in grave danger. Archer says, your people broke the treaty. Not knowing that puts the Andorians in grave danger. Shran says, I am in your debt. Archer says, don't mention it. Shran says, you don't understand. I think I might have been a Ferengi in a past life because I hate being in someone's debt. So we will meet again. Whether as friend or foe, I don't know. And that's the episode. And it's pretty damn good. Yeah, the Vulcans are portrayed as a little sketchy, but the problem I have with all prequels is that you know the good guys and the bad guys. Or do you? The best way to avoid that problem is to have characters or groups who are good in the future but might not have been so good in the past. Vulcans are the perfect race to do this with, since they're obsessed with logic. Just because something is logical doesn't mean that it's moral. This episode is an actor's showcase. Jolene Blalock somehow manages to be both stoic and conflicted at the same time. Scott Bakula slides perfectly into Archer, and come on! Can you really go wrong hiring Jeffrey Combs to play your bad guy? Even when the project is a load of shit, he always delivers a delicious and delightful performance.
Okay, we're here. Did we miss anything?
Plenty. Unless you've already seen part 1. Or saw with you the other 9 times you watched it?
Assume we didn't. Anything important we need to know for this?
Genetically modified lizard guys have interfered with the Federation and Klingons for contact. Something, temporal Cold War, something. Boldly go where no man has gone before.
You can't blame Jess for it being confusing. Some idiot decided that the show should be both a prequel to Star Trek the original series and a sequel to Star Trek Voyager. Yes, Jess wrote a rant about this, a long one, but I deleted it from the script so he forgot to record it. You're welcome.
Our story begins with our old pal Silik in a dentist chair in the LSD room. He tells Future Guy, dude, you don't have to take away my superpowers. It fucking hurts. Future Guy says, oh, we could have gotten an anesthesiologist before we did this, but this is punishment for fucking up last time. It would defeat the purpose. But I'll tell you what, you complete this mission without superpowers, and we'll give them back. Deal? Then we get the opening credits. On the ship, Hoshi and Travis are getting into the turbolift. He says he missed her at movie night. She said she was a little tired and skipped it. And can you blame her? Trip has declared it Nicolas Cage month. Ah yes, abandoned subplot theater. Back in the first season, the writers were trying to pretend the rest of the cast mattered instead of this being the Archer trip to Paul and Flax show. Most of the plots they abandoned were for the better. This one could have worked. There just weren't enough Havish or Troshi shippers out there. In his quarters, Archer is getting breakfast. He says, Mr. Daniels, what are you doing here? You're my dinner time steward. Daniels says, Taylor and I swapped shifts. I'm forming a live theater troupe before Trip can get the Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, so I need my evenings free. By the way, why'd we change course? Archer says, we found some ships in that stellar nursery, so I thought we'd introduce ourselves. After a while, they come across the first ship. They contact Captain Cranky Old Man. He wants to know what they want. Archer says, we're explorers. Captain Fraddock says, fuck. If there's one thing I hate more than hippie freaks traveling to see some protostar that erupts like a geyser because they think it's a sign of spiritual awakening, it's goddamn explorers. Archer says, that sounds like something we'd love to see. We'll follow you if you don't mind. I'd like to extend an invitation to your people to come for a visit. Braddock says, as in, you'll take them off my hands for a few hours? Did I ever mention how much I love explorers? Monks from various species come aboard. They offer Archer gifts, including an antique clock and some moonshine that will make the neutron star seem like laser Floyd. Archer says we have nothing to offer you but our hospitality and, a banquet in your honor. One of the monks says, well, we normally fast during the holy times, but since you went to all this trouble... Just like in Broken Bow, nobody notices this non-green Selleck hiding among the monks. They attend the banquet and break the first rule of etiquette, discussing religion. According to the monks, this stellar nursery was where the universe began. The neutron flare, the great plume of Agastoria, is a sign of continued creation. Flax says this reminds him of Hinduism on Earth. Archer asks, how do you know about Earth religions? Flax says, I lived on Earth for 6 years. My species only requires sleep once a year or so. I got bored and studied about 8 of them. I think my favorite involved a flying plate of spaghetti. The monk says he's heard Vulcans are a spiritual people. T'Pol says it's not a religion per se, more of a cult based around logic. They ask Archer about his religious beliefs, but he dodges the question. 75% of Star Trek captains are assumed to be agnostic atheists, apart from the ones who are preachers, or, gods. The intergalactic talking chick track says, many who have viewed the neutron flare while drinking our hooch have converted. Maybe the same will happen to you. Archer says, I hope not. I look horrible in robes. Hoshi goes up to the bridge. She complains, they're having a diplomatic conference, and do you know who they don't want there? The one person on the ship who is trained in communications and diplomacy. I'm not even the one being the tour guide. Reed says, well, I hope their guide doesn't take them to my armory. I've told everyone that place is off limits. Hoshi says, they're monks, not edgy teenagers. I doubt they would want to see it. Reed goes to fix the targeting alignment sensor, leaving Travis in charge. Yet again, that Travis-Hoshi romance subplot kicks in as she eggs him on to take the captain's chair. He says, nah. She flirtatiously ribs him and he does it. But he's not there long enough to activate the massage chair button before Reed comes back. The monk's tour takes them to engineering. Trip explains how everything works. One of the monks yawns. Trip says, am I boring you? The monk says, I know all this. I'm a warp field theorist. Trip says, no, you're a monk. Not Silic says, just because I'm a monk, it means I can't know science? Wasn't there that Pope on Earth who had a degree in biochemistry? Most of the tour group goes on to the next thing. Not Silic wanders off for a bit. Once he sees that no one is watching, he pulls a cord on the warp reactor. Then he rejoins the group.
What? I don't buy it. On a scale of 1 to 10, how alone was he?
Because of all the chaos, I'd say about an 11. Why do you ask?
Well, I thought that the loneliest monks was supposed to play jazz piano.
On the bridge to Paul, Reed, Travis, and Hoshi get a call from Braddock. He says he's got to change course to avoid a plasma storm. T'Pol says, we see it, our ship can handle it. Braddock says, you might be from a utopian society that doesn't use money anymore, but my people still have to worry about something called insurance premiums. If you want me as your guide, change course. T'Pol says, it looks like somebody never saw those Limu, Emu, and Doug commercials. Tour Group B has made its way to sickbay. Phlox is giving this guy a full body scan because, he can? The machine reveals his whole body and even his DNA. Somehow he knows this guy is fine. He asks if anyone else wants to try it, but they get interrupted by the obligatory ship rattle. Archer calls up to the bridge. T'Pol tells him about the plasma storm. One of the monks says, oh, they're common around here, nothing to worry about. Reed says, are you sure? We've got them on 3 sides, and we've lost power to C deck. Trip asks his tour group if they'd like to see a crisis team in action. Smart move, we wouldn't want diplomatic visitors safe in case of a big boom. It's such a bright idea that they get the hell out of there. Apart from not Silik. All non-essential crew members are ordered to general quarters. Our over-eager waiter disobeys, becoming Crewman Daniels, intergalactic man of mystery. Lightning bolts are flying everywhere, main power is down. Trip has his, if I don't fix something in the next few seconds, we're all dead moment. And then, nothing. The monks head home. Phlox goes with them as part of a cultural exchange, because doctors are known for doing that, not, communications officers. But there's no time to worry about that. Trip calls Archer down to engineering. He says the reason the thing that should have destroyed them didn't was that somebody had pulled the relay. Archer says, couldn't one of your guys have done it? Trip says, I asked? Hell, I even offered to let them pick the next Nicolas Cage movie we haven't done. No one said a thing. Archer says, couldn't they just have been modest? Trip says, when we haven't gotten to Raising Arizona or Moonstruck? No, I think it was that know-it-all monk.
Know-it-all monks should be solving homicides.
In spite of being unwilling to come over before, they drag Braddock over. He says, I asked the monks, but they claimed they didn't know anything. Trip and Archer ask, even the warp field theorist? Braddock says, yeah, even him. But maybe if you give me a little latinum, I could dig a little deeper. Archer rolls his eyes and they let him go. Archer is headed to his quarters and Daniels approaches him. He says, we have to talk. Archer says, if it's about my breakfast order, I told Taylor to stop giving me Cocoa Pebbles because Ensign Rubble just dresses up in silly costumes and tries to steal them. Daniels says, no, this is about your Suliban friend Silik. You know, the guy you fought on the space station a while back? Archer says, you mean during that top secret mission that only my senior staff, the top Starfleet brass, and Ambassador Saval are supposed to know about? Daniel says, yeah, and if you come to my quarters, I can explain how I know all about that. They come in and see crap everywhere. Daniel says, my roommate is a bit of a hoarder. Where's my stuff? Oh wait, there it is. He goes to his locker and pulls out a box. Archer says, that doesn't look like Starfleet gear. Daniel says, it isn't. Look, I don't have time to explain. A lot of people like to tamper with historical events, so an organization was formed to prevent that sort of thing. They sent me to make sure some serious shit doesn't go down. Archer says, I've never heard of such an organization. Daniel says, right. An organization will form. I've got to work on my tenses. Archer says, you're a time traveler? Daniels grabs his BlackBerry and says, yep. It projects this big hologram. He continues, this is a temporal GPS. We are here. I'm from way down there, and Silic's bosses are somewhere in between. Look, I can see this is all sort of overwhelming. Archer says, no, I know all about time travel. Trust me. Daniel says, then you know that Silic's boss's time travel is a little bit wonky. They can't time travel themselves, but they can transmit information. You know about the treaty. You know that researchers are allowed to observe the past as long as they remain out of phase. Archer says, Daniels replies, yeah, that's what I thought. Look, most people follow the rules. Those that don't meet up with someone like me. But on this one, well, Archer says, what? Daniels explains that Silic cut the wire. Archer says, so what you're saying is everyone on this ship should be dead. Daniel says, I'm not saying that. Archer replies, really? Because that sounds like what you're saying. Daniel says, look, Silic will change history even more if I don't get your help. Archer says, you're from the 29th century, why do you need my help? Daniel says, because Silic can turn invisible. Look, in order to catch him, all I need are your command codes and access to internal sensors. It's not like there's anything sinister I can do with that. Archer says if we're going to do this, I'm going to need to tell some of my crew. Daniel says fine, but as few as possible. It's a sake of the timeline thing. Archer says agreed, but one more thing. We're trying to capture someone who, according to you, just saved my life. So I'm going to need one good reason I should trust you. Daniel says, in all the months I've been on this ship, have I ever disobeyed an order? Archer says, you're only a steward, but no, you've never brought me the wrong kind of eggs. Daniel says, and I bent over backwards to find that cheese and lamb-flavored dog food for Porthos. Archer goes to tell T'Pol and Trip everything. T'Pol says Vulcan High Command has looked into time travel. They found it's like a good vegan pizza. It doesn't exist. Archer says, but, he made a whole room disappear. Trip says, last time I was in Vegas, I went to see Penn and Teller. They did this amazing thing with a rose. Archer interrupts and says, if there's even a small chance Daniels is telling the truth, we have to help. Before they can even reply, if you've already made up your mind, why bother asking? They get a message from Hoshi. They're reaching the protostar. The monks want to take him up on his offer to view it from their mess hall. Trip asks, are you sure letting them back on board is a good idea? Archer says, yeah, one of them might be Silic, and with Daniel's machine, we can catch him. Trip and T'Pol are sharing a turbo lift. Trip says, I thought meeting aliens was cool, but meeting time travelers is so much cooler. T'Pol says, he's not a time traveler. Trip says, what makes you so sure? T'Pol says, if Daniels was really from the future when Silic changed something, why didn't he just go back and unchange it? Trip says, you've got a point. But then why make up a story that makes him look crazy? T'Pol says to hide his own sinister agenda. Trip says, well, that's cynical. What happened to your open mind? T'Pol says there's a difference between an open mind and an empty one. Archer looks around at the monks. He sees Phlox bragging about his yoga retreat. He asks him, is it just me, or are there fewer monks than yesterday? Phlox says, yeah, 7 of them wanted to stay on the cargo ship. Archer asks, were they feeling alright? Did any of them, skip rituals? Phlox says, I don't think so. But a lot of the ritual meditation had us closing our eyes, so I don't really know. Archer pats him on the back and says, never mind, great job. Trip Daniels and DePaul are installing stuff. In between techno-babbling, Trip tries to find out more about Daniels' real path. He doesn't get anything, or at least anything that makes any sense. Trip tries playing with Daniels' Game Boy, but is told to keep his hands off it. DePaul comes in and says there's a broken conduit that would normally take hours to fix. Daniel says, no worries, let me handle it. He grabs the hand clamp, Kitty pries his way through the wall, and that fixes everything. In Archer's quarters, Porthos is barking. Archer thinks it's because the poor dog hasn't gotten breakfast. But once he gets a little snack in him, he's still at it. He's barking at an empty wall. Selleck says, yeah, you got me. I know I tried to kill you last time, but that's not why I'm here. Archer says, then what are you doing here? Selleck says, I just saved your life. If I wanted you dead, you would be. Look, I've detected a higher number of tachyons than your ship can produce. That means someone is after me. Just tell me who it is. Archer says, I have no idea what you're talking about. Selleck says, I know they try to hook people with their stories about being the moral saviors of history, but they aren't. They're just another faction of meddlers. Think about it. I changed things by saving you. They're the ones who tried to blow you up in the first place. Archer says, which is exactly what you would say if you were trying to kill me. Selleck says, whoa, don't overcomplicate things here, John. You've got it all wrong. If management says to kill you, I kill you. If they say to save you, I save you. I don't ask questions. He's about to finish his villain rant when they're interrupted by DePaul. She says Daniels is ready to do his thing. Archer's about to tell her ixnay on the annuals day when Selleck shoots him, leaving brave little Porthos to try to rouse his master. The monks are waiting for their midnight screening of Pink Floyd's The Wall. The leader says, Phlox, Archer isn't here and this ship is your home. You should deliver the prayer. Phlox says, okie dokie, Klaatu, Barada, Nikto. And then something about Pat Morita. I'm not really sure. The closed captioning was no help here. Daniels' plan is working. He tells Trip to lock down engineering and get a security team. Trip is about to do it when he sees something out of the corner of his eye. Daniels says to evacuate immediately. Trip says, Daniels asks, do you really want to go into unarmed combat with an invisible guy with a gun? Trip says, right. Going to get that security team. Selleck says, hey, Daniels, you know I'm gonna have to shoot you now, right? And he just kills him while Trip and DePaul watch. Daniels flickers in and out of existence. Trip whispers, see? I told ya. They call Archer but get no response. They see that he's in his quarters, but realize it shouldn't take that long to feed Porthos. So they call Phlox and have him meet them there. They wake Archer up. Phlox says he'll be fine. Archer says we have to find Selleck. They call Fraddock to make sure no one has returned to the ship, and it's their lucky day. They haven't. They call Reed to make sure the hatches are locked down and the security teams are in place. They raid Daniels' locker for equipment to stop Selleck. The little hand device is gone. Archer says if any of that information gets out, the impact on the timeline could be disastrous. And then Hoshi calls and says somebody made an unauthorized transmission of a hell of a lot of data. Archer says, Trip says I can't read Daniels' equipment as well as I thought. I might have found Suliban life signs, but it might be Porthos. Someone connects a new device down by the shuttle bay. Last time he checked, Beagles don't use Wi-Fi. Archer calls Reed and tells him to get a security team down there. Trip hands him a device and says, "Here, take this. You might need it." They find Reed trying to get into a conduit. Archer puts on the hand clamp and walks through the wall, leading to our big confrontation with Silik. Silik says, "Hi, John. Look, I just saved you from an antimatter explosion, so do me a big favor and don't fire your gun, which might trigger, I don't know, an antimatter explosion." Archer says, "I figured it out. You saved us to lure Daniels here. Then you could steal his tech. You would earn a hell of a lot of gene mods for bringing your boss's 29th century technology. So I'm going to put a stop to that right now." The protostar erupts. We get the Star Trek shake. Then we get a good old-fashioned TOS-style fight. Selleck recovers first and escapes. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Travis says, "Remember yesterday when I detected ships plural? Good news and bad news. The good news is I found them. The bad news is they're Suliban." Silik has found his way to the shuttle bay. He says, "After all I did for you, you're going to shoot me?" Archer fires, but not at Silik. He destroys Daniels' iPad. Silik says, "Not cool. Now you've endangered both of us." Silik turns invisible and the bay doors open. The emergency force fields kick in, but not before Archer drops the power glove and Silik swan dives into space. Archer makes it to safety with, a minor case of the bends. T'Pol calls down and says the Suliban ship swooped in and picked something up. Should we, do something? Archer says, "Let it go. And, can you get Phlox down here?" Later, Archer is in his ready room with T'Pol. He says, "The monks never told me how to read this clock. Oh well. I should be working on my report to Starfleet once I figure out what to say." T'Pol says, "I recommend you start with 'Once upon a time' and finish with 'and they all lived happily ever after.' There is no way anyone will believe this is anything other than a fairy tale." They walk out onto the bridge. Archer says, "I have 2 more things to do before I call it a night. Travis, get us back on course, the one we were on before this mess. Reed, reassign Daniels' roommate to new quarters and seal off the room. We don't know what else is in there."
He wouldn't bring anything he didn't need that would contaminate the timeline, so he only brought the temporal GPS and some basic toiletries.
Come on. Even the most goody two-shoes agent would sneak some kind of luxury items back in time with them.
I'm sure his superiors would check for that.
I'm sure the time tricorder probably had enough disk space for some purient holograms of the Bajoran variety.
They lock the door never to open it again. Or do they? And that's it. That's the episode. It's not great, but it's not awful. What you think of this episode will depend on what you thought of the Temporal Cold War. If you liked it, you'll love this episode. If you don't, then you'll hate it. Personally, I think the arc had a lot of potential, but it sort of fell apart when it took a backseat to the Xindi conflict in Season 3. However, I can't let future seasons affect my judgment. On that merit, Cold Front is an average episode of Enterprise.
You're going to use all 3 of the Star Trek themed episodes on Enterprise, aren't you?
Sure seems that way.
Which episodes?
We're trying to give Enterprise the best possible shot, so I guess Detained and Shockwave Part 1.
Wait. So you started the season on Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell. And you are ending the season on Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell.
If you liked this video, please hit like and subscribe. To see this channel grow and get your name on the credits, visit patreon.com/ParityErrorFilms and become a patron today.
Little Don to Warhorse, the device is in position.